Okay, I'll start off with the hair. All I did was take the front part of my hair on each side and just go like this, and then that's that. If you want, you can take a strand, put it behind your ears, and you'll get like a little bit of a bump at this part. So that's just a little hair thing that I can tell you folks about. So if you don't want to curl it, you can kind of pin curl it by going like that and pinning it. But with this thing, I can't use the Barbie pins in this apartment because that spot will hurt. I've been using Barbie pins like I'm 49, so I've been using it forever. And all of a sudden, when they install this technology, any place that has a Barbie pin hurts a lot. That's how I figured out there was some sort of magnetic thing in this apartment. So they told me that years ago when I worked at a job, a guy said, "Oh, that's why you had static electricity in your hair. Like my hair, I could go like this and it would stand up." That's what they said. They said that was why, because of this technology. So they said they knew they were using this technology. But I used to like have my hair like this and I put it behind my ears. And then when I would wake up, it would have like a little curve to it. But I didn't do that this time because I just had it in the, you know how I showed you guys, I pull it back, twist it, and then I tuck it in. Well, this time I just put a clip in it. I notice when I move my neck a certain way, this thing comes back. So you'll see me, I'm going to be really stiff. So I just wanted to tell you that. That's the hair part. The next part about this is that they said they're going to run me out of New York. So that's going to be my interpretation of the day. They're going to run me out of New York. So they said they got like all these crimes that I committed that they should have reported to the police. That's another part of this. When people make these accusations against you and they write it down, they say in real time, instead of writing it down, you should report people to the police, because then you become somebody who knew a crime was committed, but you didn't report it. So that's another part of the problem with them. They wanted me to think this was an official like government thing, but the crimes that they're committing are so horrible that if this was if this were, I don't know now if it's were or was, if this were an official government thing, then the people committing the crimes wouldn't be stupid enough to commit these types of crimes. It wouldn't make sense. So that's my point. Like when this started, they admitted that they're criminals. Then all of a sudden they kind of tried to make themselves fancy, and they were trying to use like extra special words. And then they started talking and my vocabulary completely changed. So that's how I knew something was off, because I speak English and yet my vocabulary was shifting and I couldn't remember, like, is it was, is it were? I would just like start talking about fencing and all sorts of crimes. Like, I'm like, I don't know anything about fencing. What, you know, so that's my point. And I had to do it this way. So they're trying to change like when things happened, and because they figure now that I'm ill, I wouldn't remember, but I tweeted a lot of it. So let me interpret what they said, and then I will go into some more of this. So now I'm trying to remember what I said before. But the whole point is they keep trying to get me upset because they said this happened years ago. And they said, well, everything you say, we write down. Isn't that strange? Like someone who claims to be a friend would write down everything you say. That's my point. Like, you know, they think this confusion that they're causing causes everyone in the world to be confused. No, there are a lot of people who will not be confused and understand that that person wasn't a friend. And if that person wrote down everything I said, how come it doesn't sound like what she thought it sounded like? And how come people already know this is something going on? There are too many ways that this whole scam that they wanted to pull on me is obvious. It's obvious. So they said they wanted to make me feel guilt about like everything. I really don't feel guilt about telling the truth. I think, you know, I would feel guilty if I went along with it. So as I'm telling you all this stuff, and as I'm going through everything on camera and telling you stuff, people are like, what's the big deal? You know, like these, like, the stuff she wrote down, they're not crimes. And there's somebody who you can tell this was part of the setup. They said they wish they had done this 30 years ago. But 30 years ago, people were smart. I think what happened in the 30 years is that people we became more knowledgeable about things, but we became less, I don't know, I can't think of how I can phrase it, but 30 years ago, we had crime. Crime has always existed, but people were kind of smart about certain things and they could catch it. Now, it took a long time for people to figure out about gang stalking. And that's the sad part. I wish that we had the ability to have figured this out earlier. So I think that was part of the difference between what would have happened 30 years ago and what's happening now. I think maybe, I can't figure out why we were a little bit smarter years ago about some things. Some things we weren't, but some things we were much smarter about. And 30 years ago, when this person tried to do something, she got caught. And the same thing I can say about a lot of these folks. They got caught years ago. Now it's so much harder, I think, because maybe, I don't know why. Anyway, so what I'm interpreting this to mean is that these types of people always think that they can get away with things that you and I couldn't get away with. And now after 30 years or whatever, they figure they're going to try to say, I did these things and I'm this person, that person. When these same people at the time gave me thank you cards, they gave me references, they said, oh, you're so great. You can't have it both ways. And that's part of my point. What happens at the time is what stands, not what you then try to rewrite 30 years later. So at the time stands and takes priority over what you would rewrite. Why? Because people's memories change. We get older, we get new information. You can't rewrite the past. So that's my point with them. They wanted to come into my life when I'm 49 and say, oh, something happened. Well, then why would you have given me those things at the time? Something must have happened with them that made them want to change. So the other part of that I want to say is that they said they wanted to use my ideas. As you can tell, my ideas aren't as easy for me to come up with now. This is part of what happened to me. You get what I'm saying? So I'm not going to be able to come up with great ideas or say something so wonderful because my mind isn't as sharp as it was before. So they say, aren't you scared that means people are going to try to take over your life? No, I don't have to be as sharp at 49 as I was when I was 20 something or 30 something. That's my point. My point is that as you age, I don't have to be that person. They said they thought I would be able to do all this work because they think I'm a bottom bitch. When have I ever been a bottom bitch? I mean, that's my point with them. When have I ever been a bottom bitch? And to come up with this stuff after the fact is ridiculous. So they said I used to look at people the wrong way. That's not a crime. Not a crime. They said again, these aren't crimes. So they said, oh, didn't you once call two people gloom and doom?